Uh, so the other day, my son asked me about having a shirt with, drawings of animals on it, and if he can use it at all, or if he can use it to pray with. So I told him, and he mentioned there is a hadith about you cannot have a surah, a figure, or a picture on your shirt or at all, because الملائكة لا تدخل بيتا فيه تصاوير كلب أو صورة. So there is a hadith says angels will not enter a house that has a dog or um, surah, literally surah picture, but in that hadith, maybe it wasn't meant to be, the meaning wasn't picture. The meaning was maybe the surah that at that time, which is idols, statues. And I explained to my son at that time, because people were still, their iman did not enter their hearts, and they did not actually they transferred from Muslim to Mu'min, and some of them actually did not become Muslim to begin with. So idols at that time was a great thing, because it was the thing that against Tawheed, against Islam. But now nobody will worship an idol. So even if we take it an idol or a statue, I don't think it's meant for today. We cannot apply the same thing. So that took me to another thing, which is when I looked at the ayah in Surah Al-A'raf, يُحِلُّ لَهُمُ الطَّيِّبَاتِ وَيُحَرِّمُ عَلَيْهُمُ الْخَبَائِثِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here made it open, or made it halal for us all the tayyibat, and haram for us all the khaba'ith. Now the question become here, are we as human beings and Muslims in particular able to decide what is the tayyibat and what is the khaba'ith? Now the problem, after maybe the decline time, or the time the Muslims stopped using their intellect and brain, they go back to their mashayikh, and if this halal, haram, and they have the 5 scale that use halal, haram, mandub, makruh, all these stuff. So nothing will go beyond that. So the idea of tayyibat and khaba'ith was disappeared. Also, what we lost with that, we lost the ability for individual Muslims to tell this is tayyibat. I don't have to go back to anybody. If Allah says يُحِلُّ لَهُمُ الطَّيِّبَاتِ, then I can, if this is tayyibat, food or music or something in life, then because I am Muslim, I can tell this is halal. I don't have to go to a shaykh or somebody, another entity or institute. I think what we need here, my judgment, I could be wrong, I think I want to hear your opinion, is to reactivate our intellect to be able to tackle life. That's why we are on the side of life. If we cannot use our brain to decide, then we will be on the side. I mean, we cannot have Nahda, civilization, or renaissance, or improve our situations without reactivation our intellect. Jazakumullah khair.
That's a big question. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulullah. Has to be put in perspective. The original Islam emphasizes faith, iman, between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the fact that Islam is a mission that you have to fulfill. And there are maqasid that have to be fulfilled. There are ultimate purposes that Allah wants us to work to fulfill them. That's the heart of Islam. That's the essence of Islam. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to help us doing this, to help us fulfilling that mission, and to stay focused, prescribed some sha'a'ir. They help keeping your iman fresh. So it's like in order to keep your cell phone working, you keep charging it. in order to keep your iman vibrant, you need to charge it. So ibadat came in to charge, to maintain your faith and strengthen you spiritually. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us some fiqh, things that are haram, tayyib, halal, tayyibat, khaba'ith, haram. There are things that are, these things, they are harmful for you in this life, and they interfere with you fulfilling your mission. They do not help you. Actually, it's a distraction and waste of energy. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in order to help us succeeding in our mission, made some things that are forbidden, and then things that are halal. This last part has a lot of flexibility. But when Muslim lost the first part, which is the essence, all the focus become on fiqh and on the rituals. And when all the focus become on fiqh, they made it so rigid and they get so much details. That's why everything now, there is a fatwa about everything. That's not the nature of our deen. Now there is, you can see Dar Ifta in anywhere. They issue thousands of fatwa almost every day. Can I do this? Can I wash my face? Can I brush my teeth? Oh yeah, you can. It's halal. Can I eat? It's too much. Literally, there are web pages of the Ifta houses, the places that they issue fatwa. They receive thousands every day, and they issue thousands of fatwa every day. Almost everything you can think of. Is it halal or haram? Is it halal or haram? Can I do this? Can I do? And that runs against the nature of our deen. Our deen is more guidance, is inspiration. It's not a law. It's the law that gets very rigid and gets very complicated, like the American law that hardly anybody knows at all because it's so complex. That's why you have lawyers specializing in some branch of law because it's so complex. That's not what was meant. We made it rigid. We made it complicated when we forget about the essence and we focused on the details. If you think about it, even the sha'ir, the fara'id, you go all the way back to Sahaba, you find disagreement. A lot of disagreement about wudu, about salah, about zakat, about hajj. This is voids your salah. The others say no, it doesn't void. This is this is how you perform hajj. The other has different opinion. That's how you pay zakat. The other had so differences about the pillars. Why? Because that's what it was meant to be. It was meant that people use their brain to see how can they fulfill that mission and those goals. And when they do that, they're going to differ. They're going to differ, and it's okay. It's okay to have differences in the tools and the means that lead to the goals and to the mission. It's not okay to differ on the mission itself because it's very clear. It's Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar. It's standing out for justice, etc. So all of this comes because we lost the essence of religion. So we focused on those details, and when we focus on them, they were blown out of proportion and they become so rigid. So nowadays, we turn a great inspiring religion into a very rigid law that anything that you want to do, you want to see what it's haram or halal. Why? Because we lost the key idea that everything is halal unless proven otherwise. Al-asl fil al-ashya al-ibah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ تَعَالُوا أَتْلُوا مَا حَرَّمَ رَبُّكُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ. Not مَا أَحَلَّ. مَا حَرَّمَ رَبُّكُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ. Let me list for you things that were forbidden. Because the norm is things are halal. And the burden of the proof is on the one who says it's forbidden, not on the one who says halal. So we turn that upside down. So unfortunately, our young people and our members of our community, rather than having a debate, an intellectual debate, about how best we can fulfill our mission and how best we can spell it out and fulfill it to the best of our abilities, and how we can translate and articulate the purposes of the divine purpose and the ultimate purposes of our religion in a language that is relevant to our time and to our context. Rather than having the focus here, we went to focus on very minor details and whether they're halal and haram. That's very sad. The other side that we need to know is not only things are lawful unless proven otherwise, but also there is something called urf. Urf is the social norm. And for some big scholars, the urf is a source of legislation in Islam. The social norm. If there is something that is normal in a certain society and does not really contradict something essential in Islam, it's okay, becomes okay, because urf, it's urf, in addition to al-masalih al-mursala, what serves the greater good, that's also another source of legislation, tashri'ah. There is the social norm. So what serves the greater good should be taken seriously when saying what is lawful and what is unlawful and what is normal in a society. It's not like, unless it runs against some clear-cut teachings of the religion, otherwise social norms should also be taken into consideration. When we drop all of this, when we drop the fact that you have a mission and there are ultimate purposes that you should be working for, and there is a lot of intellectual work that needs to be done to translate our mission into civic platform, and how we can translate the divine guidance into an understanding that is relevant to our context. When we neglect those main duties and that are very demanding, that's why we avoid them. We busy ourselves with these things, unfortunately. So it's yeah, I mean, you know that this community for a long time, and probably some of it is still going on now. For a long time, they used to be taken very, very seriously. It's a matter of life or death, basically. It's should we follow the moon sighting or should we follow the calculation to decide when to start Ramadan and when do we have Eid? That's very bad. That's extremely bad, because you're taking something really small and minor and you make it an essential, and and then at the expense of unity, which is more important than, which is critical in a religion, and you make it an issue that is divisive. For a long time, people also were debating about political participation and voting and etc. So it's that's when you lose your compass, when the essential things become neglected. People start really busy themselves with the minor thing, and they blow them out of proportion. So you take a fiqh issue, minor fiqh issue, and it becomes matter of aqidah. And if you do it, then you're committing serious sin, and that can put you in trouble, even though the issue is really minor. On the other hand, there are issues that are very important, and unfortunately, in many Muslim communities and societies, they're not given the importance they should, like honesty, keeping your words and your promise, and and honoring your commitments towards even abiding by the law, which is part of your fulfilling your commitment. So things really totally messed up, and then we end up making an issue like this, somebody wearing just a t-shirt, whatever it is in it, as long as it's not something really bad, or something really offending. And then we make it, is it okay to pray, or prayer becomes void, etc. So it's part of the whole package of there is an Islamic paradigm that disintegrated, and then people picked bits and pieces, and everybody made their own understanding of religion from the pieces they were able to gather. And no serious effort is made to reconstruct that big picture, that this religion is mainly, essentially, is about inspiration and guidance. It's not a law, and it is essentially a mission, great and noble mission, with ultimate noble purposes that you should work for. And remember that the rituals and the fiqh, both of them, they were meant to support you fulfilling your mission. They were not meant as an action that is required as they're not goals. They are meant, the rituals are meant to keep your iman and to strengthen you in fulfilling your mission, and maintenance of your relationship with God. And then on the other hand, things that are forbidden are meant so that you can focus, and so that you don't waste your energy, or you're not distracted on your mission. That's what needs to be revived.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Anushi.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I have a similar related question to Brother Muhammad's question, which his son raised about wearing, a picture on a T-shirt. So my son went on a field trip, and 2 months before, I had signed him up for it, and I asked him, okay, what do you want to eat? A hot dog or a hamburger? He was going to a baseball game. They did that here locally. So he said, a hot dog. So okay. So I signed him up to eat a beef hot dog, because I made sure that it was beef. I contacted the stadium, that food service at that stadium. I did all the work. So, but then when he went to the baseball game, his friends who were from Afghanistan said, "Oh no, this is not halal. Don't eat it." So he ended up eating a veggie burger. The reason I bring this all up is because of the influence that the little kids, the peers, have on each other. So when Brother Muhammad's son, I guess, goes to the mosque and he's wearing a T-shirt that has a picture on it, and someone tells him, "Oh, it's haram to pray with a T-shirt like that," there's like a big impact due to, I guess, the age group or peer pressure that actually some reason supersedes anything that a parent would tell their little son. Because I have told my son before that yes, even though this is not dhabiha halal, because we are in a Christian country, we are allowed to eat the meat that is available in supermarkets. And I told him that, and there's an ayah that says that. But even with me showing him the proof and talking about the proof, it seemed like it was not, I guess, convincing enough for him, or it was diminished when his friend said, "Oh, it's not halal." I mean, it was almost like instantaneously, rather than him saying, "Well, my father said this, and we looked it up, this and that." I guess it has to do with age and everything, because they maybe don't know how to debate. But long story short, is peer pressure. Or the age groups have bigger impact sometimes than parents. So in a mosque, or when they're away from their parents, they're going to be subject to these pressures. So, you know, how do we you know, impact our children so that they're not you know, I guess they don't they're not affected by this pressure. Oh, don't wear that T-shirt when you're praying, or you know, oh, you have to. This is not halal meat, or you know. So I guess it's a different side of the question that Brother Muhammad mentioned.
I think that's, I mean, there is no easy answer to this, or there is no easy solution, because in all religions and throughout history, those who are more rigid are usually intimidating. I mean, and they corner you, because there is always this idea of to be on the safe side. If you're not sure, the ones that says it's forbidden is safer. So there isn't an easy way, because it's again, in every faith community, the Puritan approach that those who makes everything forbidden or makes everything rigid, they pretend and they project themselves as more pious and more religious, and that's very unfortunate. But if there is any way that we can deal with this, is that to equip our children with a very solid understanding, with the paradigm that I was describing, that Islam is essentially a mission. It's about you striving to be all you can be, and to maximize your contribution, your positive impact, and your contribution to the greater good. That's what it is. That's our religion. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to help us doing this, prescribed rituals to fulfill and to express our gratitude to him, and then made things forbidden. But Islam is not a law that we're gonna spend our life finding what's halal and what's haram, and what's lawful and what's forbidden, and then get to the point that everything has to be checked, and there is nothing that is naturally lawful. This idea has to be really, I mean, resisted big time. And the idea of that everything is lawful unless proven otherwise have to be deeply entrenched in the minds of especially future generations, so that they become immune to those very rigid and very intimidating views or understandings of Islam. If we raise children really dedicated to that big mission and to those big goals, working on themselves to be all they can be, which requires a lot of learning and a lot of action, they will have no time and no energy for these debates. And then also, we need to equip them with this idea that it's okay to differ, that in Islam there isn't such thing that only one way that is correct. So if they interact with their peers and their peers have a different view on an issue, they should be very comfortable saying that I respect your opinion, but you know, our religion has a lot of room for differences of opinion, which happened even among the companions. So I just respect your opinion and you respect mine. We don't have to agree, because neither you nor I are speaking on behalf our spokesperson for Islam. Nobody is spokesperson for Islam. Nobody is receiving revelation anymore. It's matter of opinion. Raising children to be very comfortable when they are interacting with their peers, to say, yeah, I know, yeah, I know, or even I don't know, that yes, I'm that there is such opinion and I respect you, but also I'm convinced with what I'm doing. I'm comfortable with what I'm doing, because either myself, I look it up or ask my dad, or I search this topic and I'm comfortable with this. So they have to be confident and who have to be immune to intimidation. And it's not like anybody who comes and say, no, what you're doing is haram or is forbidden, is very bad, etc. And they become intimidated and scared and they carry it. No. So that's very important. Again, the correct paradigm that it's a relationship between you and God that will translate into striving to be all you can be and to have the greatest possible impact on this world and on people around you, and the greatest possible contribution to the greater good. That's what our religion is all about. And then to do that, we have those rituals to charge your iman and to your faith and keep it and maintain it. And then we have things that are forbidden, but that's the paradigm. It's not a law that we're going to spend all our life discussing everything. And by the way, there was discussion about the TV when it came up, the video, the halal or haram, etc. So many telephone, you name it. Every now and then they're discussing things that should not be discussed at all here. So, and then this idea of raising children, knowing that there is a lot of room in Islam for differences, and it's okay. And if you meet people who have different opinion, remember that there was differences among the companions and among topics that are much more essential than this.
I think the problem is maybe deep in the community or in the Muslim nation as a whole right now. There is several examples. Like I have this example in this community, in Adams community. I'm part of the election committee here at Adams organization, and there is something for when you nominate somebody. They made it like a norm. You don't nominate yourself. Somebody nominate you. Why? Because I think there is a hadith about we don't لا نولي من يسألها. And I think that hadith applied in certain circumstances. We don't give the not leadership, any like a position for somebody who asked. But at that who came from Jahiliyyah and they want the pride and something for themselves. Now it's different. Now everybody in this community is like shy on the side and doesn't take any responsibility unless somebody pushed them from the side. So as a community, we became like masses, inactive masses. We don't do anything unless somebody pushed us. That's the mentality that came, I think, as a result of dictatorship or as a result of decline or a lot of stuff. But I challenged them and told them, no, if you feel you can do better for this community and you can introduce some new ideas or new efforts or whatever, you should do that without somebody asking you. Because that hadith applied or applies in certain circumstances. You cannot make it as a rule. But most of the people here, they don't ask the question why. They just heard it from Imam, and maybe his knowledge is limited or something, and he heard it from a school, old traditional school of thought or something, and he just applied it, and nobody come and challenge him. Everybody say yes, yes. Nobody will say why. The question of why is kind of forbidden in our mentality.
I think Brother Muhammad wants to say something.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. Very good to see you, Dr. Sohail. It's been a couple of weeks. And I want to thank you for raising this issue. It is extremely important. I have 4 children in this country. I insist on raising my children in Lebanon and bring them here only for college, 18, 19. So at least they have some attachment to our culture, to our deen, to our ways. But still, once they come and live here, they are challenged because many of the traditional things they were fed back home cannot apply here anymore. I mean, even the ones that I tried to protect, I mean, my children, bring them only here after 18 or 19, are still being challenged. Imagine what happens to our children who are born here. I think if we allow this traditional understanding, these irrelevant issues like the ones we were just discussing, to stay on the surface, we are losing our generation. We are losing our kids. We need to simplify what is halal and what is haram according to the Quran. I met someone, by the way, a couple of weeks ago who became Muslim in the most strange ways. I told him, you were invited to become a Muslim. And I gave him one short, small advice. I said, don't talk to Muslims. Read the Quran. Take your religion from the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. Instead, we ignore this ayah and we go to the Imam. Is this right or not? Is this halal or haram? Ya akhi, did you read the Quran? Did you find anything in the Quran first? I mean, what is the first source of information for you? We have taken this Quran mahjura. رَبِّ إِنَّ قَوْمِ اتَّخَذُوا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ مَهْجُورًا. And we turned the Imams, with all due respect, I love the Imams. My brother is a mufti, by the way. We take them as a more important source of information than the Quran, against what the Quran says. I think we should keep stressing that, bring people back to the Quran, simplify halal, haram, and encourage free thinking, critical thinking questions. I think Brother Muhammad mentioned that. I don't want to talk too much, but this is very sensitive and very, very important. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. This idea of just to emphasize what the Brother Muhammad just said, we have the Quran that we should focus on. We neglected it. Then we visit ourselves with the Sunnah, which is mixed, authentic and non-authentic. And then we took another step. We visit ourselves with the books of Torah, which is the heritage that explains the Quran and Sunnah. So these are become barrier. And then even these, we don't want to read them. We want to rely on the Imams who read them. So 4 stages from the Quran, and then the Sunnah. Again, Sunnah, there is a difference between authentic Sunnah and not authentic. And then the heritage books, Torah, that explains the Quran and the Sunnah. These are become our ultimate source. We neglected the original 2. And then the Imams who read those books, they become our reference. So it hardly could be worse, what we have done to religion. We need to go back and study the sources. It's the Quran and the authentic Sunnah checked against the Quran. Sunnah should be checked against the Quran, and we should remove from our mind this idea that if there is a hadith in Bukhari or in Muslim, then it is authentic. And even if it contradicts a verse, we have to twist the meaning of the verse so that it is consistent with the hadith. This is one of the worst things that was done to religion. Rather than saying Bukhari and Muslim and others, they did excellent job. They explored and investigated hundreds of thousands of hadith, and they came up with a couple of thousand. Great job. Maybe 95% correct, maybe 90%, maybe 85%, you never know. But never human work you can say this is 100% and everything there it's like something in the Quran. That's not true. Gonna have to stop being lazy, go back and embark on the study of the Quran and contextualize it. Contextualize it, because some people they think this is very bad word. What do you mean contextualize in Quran? Yes, contextualize. Allah promised to preserve the Quran, but assigned us the job to contextualize it, to make it relevant to our context. And that's a delicate job. It's a difficult job, but there is no way around it. To say that because it is difficult and it is delicate and it's risky, it's demanding, so let's just rely on the work that was done before. That's safer and easier. That's not true. You can't. The work that was done before was developed for a different time, for a different context, and it is, even if it is successful, that's if it is successful, it was relevant for that context. You cannot just bring it and try to implement it in this context. There is so much flexibility in this religion. We have seen the first Khalifa after the death of the Prophet using his mind and making judgment, and companions confronting him with a hadith, and they said, what you're doing runs against this hadith, and he say, I'm going for it. This is the best interest for Islam and for the state. And we have seen how the second Khalifa, after a couple years of the death of the Prophet, making major decision and judgment and ijtihad and using their minds, because they know that this religion has purposes and has mission, and our job is to find the best way to fulfill it, not to stick to the literal meaning regardless of the outcome. That should never be the case, and that's what need to be fixed. This paradigm that was turned upside down. This religion is a mission with ultimate goals. Your job is to try to find the best way to fulfill that mission and those goals, inspired and guided by the Quran and the authentic Hadith and Sunnah, but always in mind, keep the end in mind. They say begin with the end in mind. Keep the end in mind, because that's ultimate. At the end of the day, you have a job to fulfill and you have goals to fulfill, not a law that you stick to it regardless of the outcome. And that's how we've seen Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, when he decided not to accept that one part of the country refused to pay zakat, which is the taxes of that time, and people confronted him, say there is a hadith that you're doing something against the saying of the Prophet, and he went on and did it. And Umar, actually it's even more than that, there are verses in Quran, and he just saw that applying that verse at that time is gonna defeat the purpose, does not achieve the purpose of Allah or the justice. So either suspended or he did some modification here and there. So it is about time to rediscover that great, inspiring, empowering religion with that flexibility and with that with the essence of it, focusing on the essence of it, and not busy ourselves with the things that they fall in the area of it's okay to differ. We shouldn't really spend a lot of time discussing that, because at the end of the day, you go and you find the companions themselves differing about Hajj, they differed about Salah, about the wudu, about the zakat, about that's the nature of religion. It tolerates that. It tolerates the differences on the tools and the differences on the approaches and the differences on the methodology of understanding which source comes first, and everybody who adopts the methodology ends up with different rules. And that's why we have those schools of thoughts. You go and to Shafi'i and others and Malik, etc. You find each one of them has a methodology of understanding, and that methodology always result in a different fatwa or a different ruling. Because why? Because this religion has a room for that, and nobody has the right to reduce that large space for disagreement and for differences.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Andushi.
Alaikum salam.
I want to add something that I experienced similar to what Brother Muhammad said earlier, that he tells people, new converts, to just refer to the Quran. I think that's great advice. What I tell them, what I tell converts, or Muslims who are basically new to Islam, I tell them, look, if it doesn't make sense, keep searching and keep asking other people, other imams, for the answer. Don't settle for, okay, it's haram, you know, and if it doesn't make sense to you, I mean, don't just take it. So keep searching until you know, if it doesn't make sense, if something isn't sitting right in your mind, keep asking. So that's one thing I tell new converts. And I think I said the story a year ago about a Muslim, you know, convert. He's American. He lived here in the Fredericksburg area. I know the person firsthand. I met with him. I sat with him. I sat with his grandmother. So he was told, oh, you can't, you know, he had a mental issue, you know, basically just depression, you know, nothing out of the ordinary. He was told, don't take antidepressants. You don't need it. You know, Allah will cure you. You know, just being a Muslim will cure you. So he stopped taking his antidepressants. And I know this firsthand because I sat with him and I sat with his grandmother. The next thing they told him, or actually, I guess when he converted, they told him all these things. You can't eat Chick-fil-A. You can't eat anything that is not halal. They told him that you can't pray in the car. And I know these things because his grandmother sat with me. The boy ended up basically homeless because he just was so conflicted. He left his mother's house, then he left his grandmother's house. His grandmother was telling me, you know, ever since he converted, he used to like eating at Chick-fil-A. We don't eat at Chick-fil-A anymore. When we're driving somewhere, he has to make a stop so he can pray with his prayer rug on the floor. And sometimes we stop by the highway for him to pray. I hope, you know, I didn't ask her if it was a rest area, but I hope it was a rest area and not the emergency lane. But anyways, so they were telling him all these things, and which were contrary to, you know, common sense, to Islam, basically. But he was listening to it, and it ended up like messing up his life completely. And I sat with his grandmother. She was almost crying. Anyways, that's one thing, you know, that, so I always tell new converts, if it doesn't make sense, keep searching. And we need to take care of them, really. They need better guidance when they convert. That's one thing. The other thing is, you've always mentioned, Dr. Anoushi, that you know, Islam needs to be tailored to a specific community. And I was watching this documentary about the Nation of Islam, and one of this was a history of Nation of Muslims in Philadelphia. So I was watching this video, and one of the brothers being interviewed said something that really like resonated with me, and I was like, wow, this is what Dr. Anoushi always tells us. He said that given the problems they were facing back then in the 60s, 50s, he specifically said this. He said that if I was introduced to the Islam of the East, I don't think I would have converted. He said that in his own words, because it did not resonate with me, did not speak to me. But the Islam that was presented by the Nation of Islam and Malcolm X, our brother martyred, Malcolm X, he said that it basically addressed his problems at that time, in that community, African American community, and it was basically tailored for the problems that they were facing, and how it helped that community basically get basically revived. So I was like, wow, here we have a situation that happened in the 50s or 60s, where the African American Muslims addressed the issues in a way that is relevant to the community, and it did not just bring the Islam from the East and try to apply it on these people in the 50s or 60s. So I was really refreshing to hear. So I just wanted to add these 2 points to the discussion.
It's very unfortunate that I mean, regardless of how successful the Nation of Islam attempt to contextualize Islam, that's a different discussion. But it was a serious attempt to contextualize it and produce some results that were positive. I mean, the whole thing need to be assessed and evaluated, but that's not our subject here. But it's just comparing that, importing an understanding from history or from very different context, that's guaranteed failure. That's not going to work. I mean, when you try to contextualize, at least you have a chance to succeed. Yes, they say you will miss all the shots that you don't take. So this understanding of Islam that we were talking about, it is failing big time even in the East. It's failing big time in the Muslim countries. And it is failing in 2 different ways. One, it's turning off majority of people, majority of young people. It's not attractive, it's not inspiring, it's not at all. And then even those they succeed to recruit or to sell them this understanding of Islam, they mess them up. Because this irrelevant understanding, if it is embraced by that person, by a person, that person will not be able to engage their societies. Why? Because you put the software in their mind that is irrelevant, that has nothing to do with their context. A lot of them, they start having problem dealing, even you're talking about convert, a lot of time will start having a problem dealing with their own members of family and friends. They could be, why? Because you put them in a very different context, in a context that are centuries, many centuries away, or a very different. Of course, it becomes more flagrant in America. Why? Because in America, it's you are selling, or the person will embrace a version of religion, not only that is coming from history, but also it is coming from a very different context. So there is history and geography. Over there, it's history. Over there, it's a problem of history because you bring a version of Islam that was developed many centuries ago and you want to sell it. You only change maybe the packaging. And when the person, first of all, majority will reject it, and some who will accept it and they end up rejected because they find that it's not really helping them succeeding in life, and it's causing a lot of tension inside and a lot of confusion. And those who embrace it and stick with it, they become either a destructive force if they go all the way to become radical and terrorists, etc., or they become very isolated and people who are unable to interact even with the closest people to them, because now they see things, Muslims and non-Muslim, and if their parents are not really, the hijab of his mother is not really as perfect as it's supposed to be according to their understanding, then they have problem with their mothers. If their father, they don't see them as religious as is supposed to be, that does not meet the profile, then they will have problem with their father. It's a disaster. What's going on, it's a disaster. And there is hardly anything that is opposing this trend. And they have their way, they supported by a lot of money. They have a lot of channels, TV channels, a lot of, so they are very active on social media, a lot of websites, a lot of literature being printed, etc. And believe it or not, young people, young Muslims here or in the Muslim world, that's probably the only thing that is available for them. There is no alternative. We failed to provide alternative, and we are not really providing an alternative to this rigid, irrelevant understanding superficial, shallow understanding of religion that messes people up. They mess up it messes up their identity, their mindset, their personality, etc. Why? Because it makes them live in a different era. It makes them live in a different era, and the way they look at this world, it's a binary. That there is only one group of good Muslims, good believers, and everybody else is in trouble. That's what they sell them. There is the profile. If you don't fit that profile, then you are outside of the circle of the good believers. So that's how serious it is. And that's how urgent it is to develop and promote an alternative understanding of Islam that is based on that it is essentially, it's a spiritual matter between you and God, and that translates into you working on yourself to be the best version of yourself and try to make this world the best, in the best possible shape. That's all. That's what our religion is all about. Everything else is supporting items in our religion, but the heart of our religion is this.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
You know, I'm new, I just joined, so I'm really not sure what happened. My name is Muhammad Amroni from Houston. Sheikh, when I heard you were saying we use the Quran and then the authentic Sunnah, which is great. You know, I kind of grew up, that's what was used. You know, where I grew up, I grew up in Algeria, so people use the Quran, then the Sunnah. Then as I moved around the world, you know, Saudi, here in the US, you know, people will say the Sunnah first, and then the Sunnah, they kind of make it equal. And so I appreciate what you said. The question, though, that I ran lately, this is new for me and kind of confusing. So I'm hearing folks now saying, let's just throw the whole Sunnah. You know, basically just focus on the Quran. So that's very different than using the Quran and then the authentic Sunnah. So what do you have to say on that?
No,
the Quran, I guess.
The only thing that we are sure 100% is authentic and correct is the Quran.
Okay.
The hadith, other than the mutawatir, which means the hadith that was narrated by a lot of people on a lot of people. So the chain was always has many people and never had a single person in it.
I know what mutawatir is.
Yeah, I mean for everybody. So all other hadith are not, we cannot be sure 100% they're correct. Okay. We can't. I mean, and that's, I think, the big mistake that we made, because we always have this, we are not confident in our religion. So we think that if we say that the books of Sahih, Bukhari, or Muslim, they're not 100%, we are afraid that Islam will collapse. No, Islam will not collapse. We can always say that, appreciate the great work they have done. It's an amazing work, but we can also be very comfortable to say we are not sure that the result is 100%, that every hadith that is there, it's correct or authentic. We cannot, because it's a human effort, and human effort never perfect. So we have to keep this in mind, and also we have always to give the priority to the Quran, because at certain point in time people made the mistake, because they accepted this idea that every hadith, every saying in Bukhari or Muslim must be authentic. So when it contradicts a verse, we have to go and try to find a different interpretation of the verse so that it is consistent with hadith. That should never be the case. It should never be the case, because the Quran is the reference, not the hadith. It's the other way around. It's the hadith that is not consistent with the Quran. We should put a question mark on its authenticity. And that again does not take anything away from the great work of those scholars. So we have to know, first of all, even the Quran itself, it's not only the hadith, even the Quran itself has some verses that are principles. They are valid for all times and all places, and has some verses that are contextuals. They apply only in certain context. For example, there are a lot of verses in Quran about fighting, qital, fighting. Quran, Islam is not a pacifist religion. It's not like you accept injustice, no. But that's contextuals. That happens only in a certain context. You are in a country that guarantees freedom of expression, freedom of organizing, freedom of conscience, etc. Then all these verses do not apply. And there is nothing wrong with this. We should be very comfortable saying that's from the greatness of the Quran, because it was meant for everybody, for all context. And I always use the analogy saying Quran, it's like a pharmacy. It has all the medicine, it has all the ingredients of the medicine, but it does not mean any medicine can work for anybody. The medicine that can cure a person can kill another person. The medicine that can cure a person at a certain dose, if you exceed that dose, it can cause problems. So that's what we should remember. That's for the Quran itself. Now the Sunnah, we have another issue, which is authentic or not authentic first. And then after it is authentic, then we also have to take the context into consideration. Brother and sister, this is very essential in Islam. There is something called fiqh al-ma'alat. Like things are judged by their outcomes or consequences. That's one. There is maqasid. Does this achieve the goal of Islam or does not achieve? When Umar ibn Khattab changed the way to distribute the spoils of war because it does not achieve justice anymore. If he distribute the kingdom of Persia and the Roman Empire at that time, all those spoils on the fighters, that will not achieve justice. So he came up with this idea that let's put all of that to the treasure and then give these people salaries, which is an amazing creative idea. Why? Because he was guided by the idea that I'm not going to stick to the letter. I have in mind justice. When he suspended applying the penalty for stealing, he had in mind that does not achieve justice. His people are hungry. So that's what we need to remember. And always that should be our guidance. Because Rasul, the Prophet himself, one time, and I don't know why some hadith did not take the attention they should. He told Aisha, his wife, that if it was not for the fact that your people are new in religion, in Islam, I wanted to demolish the Kaaba and rebuild it at the original, it's in its original dimension, because Kaaba was bigger. But when there was a flood that destroyed it, the people of Mecca at that time did not have enough money to rebuild it in the original dimension, so they rebuilt it smaller. Look at the way the Prophet is thinking, saying, I want to do this, but I'm afraid if I do it, it can bring bad consequences, so I'm not going to do it. That's the mindset that we need to revive. It's not like do it because it is there, regardless of the consequences. No, the Prophet is saying, I want to demolish part of the Kaaba and then expand it to the original dimension, because now we have the means to do that. But I'm afraid that if people see the Kaaba demolished, their faith will be shaken, so I'm not going to do it. That's the kind of thinking that we need to revive. It's hard, it's delicate, it's always the difficult option, because rigidity is easy and diluting everything is easy. Making everything halal is easy, making everything haram is easy. But having this, following this middle course, about that we have a mission, we have goals to achieve, and we have this guidance. We need to find out which part is going to be fixed, which part is going to be contextuals, which one, if we apply it, will achieve the goals, or if we apply it now, it may backfire. It may, that's a lot of intellectual work that unfortunately we stopped doing it for centuries now, because we found the easier way to rely on the frozen fiqh and the frozen ijtihad, because that's more convenient. It's more convenient because the other option requires a lot of intellectual efforts. And then, as I said, it's delicate, it's risky. The results are not guaranteed, but you will miss all the shots that you don't take. Every attempt, sincere attempt, I'm not talking about people who have agendas, I'm talking about any sincere attempt to contextualize Islam is better than relying on the frozen version that is leading us nowhere.
Like one of the scholars, he said, العلم بالوحي بالتنزيل علم الواقع إنزال الأولى على الثاني.
أحسنت. Perfect. Because this religion is not a theory. This religion is meant to come to fix this world and make it better. So you need both. You need the understanding of the religion and the understanding of the context, and then you need to contextualize.
Jazakallah khair.
So I got a few text messages. One sister was recommending, based on the discussion of new converts and leading them to a correct path, is maybe establishing a hotline where new converts can call and ask, for advice. That's one thing. And another sister commented about mental health, and how it's not really, unfortunately, given a lot of attention in the Muslim community. So if we can comment on those, or I don't know what would be possible regarding a hotline. I'm sure it's going to need a lot of dedicated people, time, effort. And the other one is also not a simple topic.
It's a good idea, but probably we can start small. If some of you can work on arranging a regular meeting, even if we start monthly, even if it is virtual, for converts, starting from Shirley Gate, our base, and try to promote it. It's like some sort of support group or some sort of, and have that round table discussion. We can have it in person once a month, once in 2 weeks or something, or we can try it even virtually. That's a good start, because as you said, the hotline may require a lot of logistics, but this is something that probably we can think about it and maybe start it. I know that I think in Dar al-Hijrah they have something like that, but we can think of something like this.
That's a great idea. Jazakallah khair. Yeah, virtual, and inshallah I'll work with Brother Firas on it. Maybe we could set up something for next month. If you would like us to start it next month, we can do that, Dr. Anoushi.
Okay, good.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Ganesh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I think you've talked about this before, but about love of Allah. I don't know if you have a lecture on it, but I was wondering if you could please explain again, how do we inculcate this love of Allah?
First of all, we cannot give that which we don't have. We cannot make our children love God unless we love God. So the starting point is ourselves. Starting point is ourselves, is to really make an effort. And alhamdulillah, the Prophet gave us a very simple recipe. recipe of 3 words. Man عرف الله أحبه. Whoever get to know God will love him. So Man عرف الله أحبه. So the way to have that love of Allah is to get to know him. Now, how do we get to know him? There are also practical ways. I always recommend that people study, memorize, understand the names and attributes. That's a very effective way to know Allah very well. And they made it into some sort of nasheed, lyrics that last like 3 minutes or less than 3 minutes. So that's a good way, because when you know all those names and attributes and the meanings, that really strengthen the presence of Allah in your life and strengthen that relationship with him. Studying the Quran, it's the critical, because in Quran Allah is talking about himself. You really find yourself getting closer and closer to Allah when you study the Quran. It's not just reading. When you study the Quran, meaning that you read with reflection and contemplation and search the meaning and ask. As I always say, that the Quran, there is a text and there is a message. The text is what you read. The message needs to be extracted. It's not obvious. You need to think and make an effort to extract it. It's like what people do, students do when they study. They study the textbook. Textbook has text. They read it, but they want to get the concepts. They want to understand the principles. So studying the Quran, and also contemplating about the creation of Allah. Nowadays, there are so many good resources and documentaries and videos that talk about all parts of the creation, from this universe to the human body. And it's not only for scientists or for people who have the background. A lot of these resources, they are for everybody. And I strongly recommend, because also the more you know the creation of Allah, the more the stronger will be your relationship with him. And Allah praised the 2 categories of people in the same verse. Those الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض. Those who remember Allah in all situations, whether standing or sitting down or laying down, and those who contemplate on the creation of Allah. So the spiritual part and the intellectual part, both of them will strengthen that relationship with Allah. It's a reality. It's an unfortunate reality that not many Muslims are making the effort. That's why the relationship is very superficial. Muslims have that emotional attachment to Allah and to the Prophet, but it's not backed up by knowledge. It's just emotional attachment that they become angry or emotional if there is something bad said about the Prophet. But how much they know about the Prophet? Very little. How much they know about Allah? Just let any Muslim try to explain, either to a friend or to even to their children. Try to explain Allah. They will not find a lot to say. Why? Because they did not acquire it. You cannot give that which you don't have. So I strongly recommend that we don't take our relationship with Allah for granted. We acknowledge that our knowledge of Allah is very limited, very shallow and superficial, for a reason, because we did not make the effort. Things do not happen by themselves. And the solution is to start fixing that problem and start really embarking on getting to know Allah more and more, to the point that you feel yourself so motivated to tell people about him, and also feel that you are very capable of doing it. So very motivated. You love, we all like to talk about something we love or someone. So you need to get to know Allah to the point where you feel that you love him so much that you want to always talk about him and you want to tell everybody about him. And then you are capable of doing that. You can explain Allah to someone who is highly educated, someone who's not educated at all, young, old, Muslim, anybody. Why? Because you master it. When you master something, you know that you can explain it to at any level, and you can do it in 30 seconds, and you can do it in lecture. You can do it depending on the context and the opportunity that you have.
Dr. Suhail, go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, just a quick question, Dr. Anoushi. So I'm looking at next month, July 8th is a Sunday. Would you like I'm in planning mode right now for the lecture for the converts, new Muslim converts. So would you like it to be on a Saturday or a Sunday after our regular Sunday lecture? What do you prefer?
That's a good idea. Sunday, it's a good idea after the lecture.
After the regular, inshallah.
If that works.
Dr. Suhail, two things. First
Sure.
one, if you can assign us homework every week, like you say, from Surah Al-Imran from verse 18 to 19, so everybody can study and try to extract the messages. Because really, I have a problem to extract the message. After I listened to your khutbah, I say myself, why I didn't see it, Dr. Suhail, he said. We have problem to extract the messages. I think we need to start learn ourselves how to do it.
That's a very great suggestion. Inshallah, we'll start next time.
You tell us, and we prepare ourselves. You give every one of us 2-3 minutes what he extract, and after that we listen to you. We can see what we missed from the message.
That's a great, and more
Yes,
than likely, we'll not miss anything. Inshallah, collectively we'll get it.
Second point. Before yesterday, I was invited with my wife to event in Sterling. The people come from Washington, D.C. And when we enter the room, my wife, she saw 3 ladies from Washington, D.C. sitting in one table. And she told me, okay, I will go sit with them, sit in different place. She went to sit with them. They didn't let her sit in the seat, in the chair. They told her, go sit in different table. What is the reason behind that? I asked somebody else. He told me, we have problem with the people, the African American community, the Muslim there. We created the problem in the beginning and they are reacting. Is this true or just
I don't know. I don't know. I have to find out. I mean, more details and more information. But it is a fact that some Muslims did not represent Islam in the best possible way. I mean, we have seen it in some cities. Muslims who business people they had very negative reaction from the community because they were seen as people who abuse or exploit them. So it is unfortunate that some Muslims did not represent Islam in the best possible way, and that unfortunately will be extended to everybody. But specifically, I need to get more information, what happened, what's the situation, why this reaction, etc.
Jazakallah.
Wa
If nobody has any other question, I think we'll see Dr. Suhail next Sunday, inshallah, at noon.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
عليكم السلام. شكرا.
Brother Muhammad,
Ayman, maybe you can
Brother Muhammad from Houston.
No.
Can you please send me your email? Can you put it on the chat before Firas closes?
Right now.
You live in Houston, right?
I do live in Houston, and here's my
And
email.
and send me your number, please. I may call you right away, just few minutes.
There are 2 Muhammads. There's Habban and Muhammad.
Wallah.
I mean,
one and the same, inshallah.
Inshallah.
There was a question that.
No, I was just saying maybe if you could remind Dr. Suhail before class about the questions. If you maybe like on a day before or 2 days, so we can get the questions.
Oh, the homework, inshallah.
Yes.
Inshallah.
Yeah, Dr.
Abu-
Yeah, Dr. Nushi, if you can.
Abu
Yeah,
Abdullah,
send us,
inshallah, will remind me in Jumu'ah, inshallah.
yeah, if you can send us the ayah, say on Wednesday, and I can send it out to our brothers and sisters, so that that we have more time to prepare.
Oh, yeah, good. Before even, yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, just
Jazakumullah khair.
Ayakum, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Dr. Suhail, did you get the email? I think
I'm
brother
getting the
sent-
phone numbers and also the emails. Just give me a second here to finish the email. Copying.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa
Assalamu
rahmatullah.
alaikum.
I had the first email and then I get the second. Okay, got it.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.